Hi everyone, I'm Ben. Wait, no, scratch that. I'm Lewis, and I'm interviewing Ben today for the 1 year anniversary of the Field and Foley podcast. I can't believe it's been a year already. I've been really enjoying listening to the show, and now I have the honour to interview Ben himself and ask him the same questions that he's been asking us. Ben is a sound designer, and he's a huge fan of all things Field and Foley recording, so much so he made a freaking kick-ass podcast about it, and he has been doing for the last year. So, Ben, how are you doing today?
Great, thank you for having me on your show. It's weird. It feels weird.
Is it nervous being in the passenger seat?
A tiny bit, but I don't know. I've spoken so many hours on the podcast, so it's like it doesn't feel that.
Feeling confident.
Yeah, a bit.
All right, Ben. I'm going to kick it off straight away, Ben. With why did you start the Field and Foley podcast? What was your thinking behind that?
I think I already talked about it on the podcast, but it's like 1 year at New Year's Eve, I was thinking about what do you want to achieve next year, and one of the things I wanted to do was to talk to like idols in sound, like people I really adore, and like from movies and games that I really liked, and try to like get some tips and get some like advice from getting into the audio industry or what I could do better. And while I was like mulling over that, like, okay, this year I'm going to like contact people, I'm going to call them, I'm going to try to get a call. And then I thought, like, if I go to all the trouble to find out who did the sound on this specific game and in this movie and contact them, I could also like record it and make a podcast out of it. So that's where the idea came. And then like I'm doing, and recently I'm trying to listen more and more to my gut, and it always leads me to something interesting. So I really felt like, oh, this is the way to go. I think that's going to be a good idea. And yeah, that's how the podcast started. And I started with your friend and co-owner of Air Wiggles, Greg Lester, which was so kind to be my first experimental guest. And it felt awkward and a bit, I don't know, strange.
I feel awkward talking to Greg, to be fair. So
okay, it's on Greg then.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Okay, good to know.
No, that's great. I have to say, like, in my experiences, like, just like having like a thing you commit to where you have to speak to people. I've learned so much from the stuff that I'm doing. I'm sure you've learned so much again from just, you've learned, yeah, I imagine you've learned things you weren't even expecting to learn, you know, just like random tidbits of information or little tips and tricks or just like insight that you would have never realized or guessed before speaking to these people. So that's awesome. I'm assuming that's correct. I'm speaking on your behalf. Do you think that's the case?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I have so many, not just tips, but also like, for example, I had this gear recommendation from Chris Bolt, who like told me about this very lightweight tripod, and I've bought it, and I've been so happy about it because now I have a tripod that's not that heavy to lug up a mountain, because I had my boom pole and I had this and this, and this is like a tripod and boom pole in one, and it's a very lightweight thing, and it's made for cameras, but you can also, of course, put your recorder or microphones out there. So like it really helped, like with recommendations for techniques, and also just encouragement, because I think I mentioned it too many times, but when I talked to Mark Mangini, who is like my absolute favorite sound designer of movies, and I got the chance to speak to him, I of course was very nervous, and one of the questions I asked him was about like the imposter syndrome, and when he told me like he still has the imposter syndrome after 2 Oscars, I was like, oh fuck yeah, I'm doing something right, because I also have that, and it's totally fine to have that and not lose that even after doing, I don't know how many things and how many projects. It's gonna be there always, it's gonna be a part of you, and that's fine. And it made me so confident. Like after that talk, I was like 100% more confident, just more relaxed, I would say.
Yeah.
Like not as anxious about everything, about doing a sound or about delivering something or about starting something new. It just, I don't know. It made me relax more.
It's funny, isn't it, how like knowing other people also get imposter syndrome kind of helps your own imposter syndrome. It's kind of like when you come out of a test in school and all of your friends have also done really badly. It's like, at least we can do badly together. All right.
The only problem with that is when everyone has said they have done badly, I was the only one that had like really bad grades. So for me, that analogy doesn't work. But I know what you mean.
I'm sorry to bring up painful memories.
No, it's funny. It's funny. I mean, I used to sleep during school and like learn programming at night, and that's what got me my first job. So
wow.
I'm not regretting anything.
Okay, you're sending me on so many things I want to ask more about. So, okay, putting a pin in that. So, first off, you mentioned you were climbing a mountain with a tripod and some microphones. What were you doing up there? I'm assuming some kind of field recording trip.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a hike, but generally, if I'm out in the field, I try to like find interesting like locations. For example, I have one of the most interesting locations I was in was this abandoned mine, which is like a massive thing, and you have to walk like half an hour up a hill. It's a steep hike, and then you have to squeeze through a hole, and then you're like in this massive like cavern, and you have tunnels after tunnels with different caverns, and so yeah, everything that's lightweight and small helps you to bring on your trip. And you know, I always like to bring as much things as possible, because when I'm there, I'm like, oh fuck, I wish I had my boom pole, I wish I had that. So yeah, the first time I'm going to a new location, I'm trying to pack, of course, lightly, but pack as much different material as I can to like really scout out what works and what doesn't work.
What did an abandoned mine sound like?
The good thing is, like, this is the best place to record because you have no noise from outside. You have no birds, you have no airplanes, you have no traffic, you have no nothing. So if you're in there and you're in a tunnel, if you stand still, the only thing you hear is like dripping water. And it's a very clear and pure sound. And I'm just gonna put it in the intro of this episode. That's gonna be nice.
It's funny actually.
So
I've always assumed caves sound like dripping water, but I always kind of assumed that was like a myth that sound designers just decided caves sounded like. But if you're actually saying that's correct, then that blows the whole thing wide open.
That is correct, but it also depends on the weather and on the seasons. You know, it's not every time, but like it also depends on the cave. But like for this abandoned mine shaft, it's like if you come to at the right time, it's very, very drippy. That's what you want. Right. And also it had this one cave where it's like a small waterfall. It's like a very narrow kind of like watery waterfall, but it's high up enough that it sounds like a waterfall inside a cave. So that's so cool. And the cool thing about that place is if you're in this cave and you have this massive reverb, like it's amazing. It just sounds so good. We also recorded some music in there.
Nice.
I'm gonna hopefully put it up soon on YouTube, but it has this massive reverb, and you have that waterfall, and it's very loud. And then you go out of the cave and go around the corner, and then you can't hear anything about it because everything, like the stone is so massive and it's so like uneven everywhere, so it swallows the whole sound. So after a few meters, you hear nothing of it. So it's a magic place for sound.
That's really cool. Okay, right. The other thing you said I wanted to go back to, did you say you were doing like programming at night? Do you have a programming background then?
Yeah. I used to be a programmer, or I'm still somewhat of a programmer. That's a thing that I really wanted to do. And when I was in school, I thought to be a game developer and a programmer, I need to be like very, very smart. I need to study, and I wasn't very smart in school. I mean, people told me I was smart, but I couldn't do theory and stuff like that. But I really liked computers, and I liked the English language. That's where I also learned to read and speak English, because all the tutorials for games and for all the new stuff was, of course, first in English, and then it sometime got translated into German, maybe. So I wanted to be on the forefront of it. So I learned English very quickly, and I learned programming, and I did some like maps for Counter-Strike and stuff like that, and for Doom, and got into that. And then I thought like, okay, let's do programming, and that's what I did like as a hobby on the side, and decided if I want to do something where I sit in an office all day, it's better be something with programming, because otherwise I'm going insane.
Yeah, totally.
And so yeah, that's how it worked.
Oh, cool. Have you found like the programming has helped with the audio stuff at all?
Yeah, that's the thing. In the recent years, I've been going away from programming and doing more like processes and like managing stuff and project management and stuff like that. Because I don't know, the spark isn't there anymore about the programming, but all the knowledge is still there. So now with the audio jobs, and especially in the game dev, you have the audio integration, which is essentially it is programming in your sounds. I mean, for things like F mode, for example, it's very easy to get into for a non-programmer, because it's very like a DAW. But for me, as with a programming background, it it was so easy to understand all the functions, the loops, and the variables, and what global variables are, what local variables are. All that thing is really, like, the background is really helping me with that, and like connecting back to the programming roots with sound is something that's really interesting now.
Great, cool. Okay, right. Sorry for the diversion. I had some questions I wanted to go through, but I just got so distracted by that mineshaft story. Okay, going all the way back to the podcast. That's what we're here about. I wanted to ask, I think it might be from Mark Mangini, but I wanted to ask if you had like a favorite thing of all the things you've learned from being like doing the podcast and all the guests you've had. What's the favorite thing you've learned from a guest on a podcast?
Ooh, that's a good question.
So you can give me a top three if that's easier.
Yeah, I mean, just off the top of my head, of course, like the Mark Mangini thing about everyone has imposter syndrome even after winning 2 Oscars, which still is crazy and unbelievable to me. But it's like, this one is cool, and the other one is that one thing I've heard a lot on this podcast and also talking to people is that it doesn't matter what kind of microphone, what kind of gear you have. There are even recordings from a phone that end up in AAA games, because I think Nathan Moody said it best. I think he said, like, the best recording gear is what you have on your person right now, like in this moment. If you're out in the field, or if you're like on vacation and you don't have your recorder, you have your phone, you have something. So just record that moment, and it doesn't matter if it's not high fidelity. So in the beginning, that was something where I was like, oh fuck, I don't have this microphone with me, I don't have my recorder with me, I can't make this great recording, I can't capture this moment. So, but that doesn't really matter. And I mean, those are not in particular order. It's not like the top 3. It's like 3 that I really like. I don't want to rate them, because the other one is, I've spoken to Melissa Pons recently and also to other people, that sometimes if you go out, you don't need to record always. You can always just sit in nature or sit in a place and just listen. Mm-hmm. And especially if you're scouting a place, that's something that sometimes gives you even more than recorded, because you have this like zen-like, just enjoying the place, listening to stuff. And I mean, maybe it's good that you record it afterwards, or maybe it doesn't, but it doesn't really matter. Like, just connecting with the sounds around you is just something that I really try more and more. Like, if I go out and record for, I don't know, something small, like we talked about waterfalls, like a waterfall, you don't need much material for a waterfall because it's essentially a lot of white noise. But then I maybe record for 5 minutes, but I sit there for an hour or something, and I just enjoy the nature. I try to like find different places and locations from where to listen to it, and just try to enjoy the experience more than the work of it. Yeah. So yeah,
that's a great tip, and I totally agree with that. I think for me personally, if I'm like walking around town or something, listening to the reverb of like different areas you're in is something that I've only really started to notice, like how it sounds weird, but how like strong they are. If you like walk through an alleyway and you hear like the slap back of your feet, for instance, between the alleyway, it almost sounds so extreme that like if you put it in a DAW, it would sound unrealistic, if that makes sense. It would sound too much, and that's been a real interesting thing for me. I remember there's a Subway in Guildford where I used to live, which is like this really big, long, not a shop, not a sandwich store, like an actual under the road Subway, and as you like. It's like really long and thin, but at the end there's a 90-degree turn. And as you walk down the subway from the long end towards the 90-degree turn, you can hear the echo as you go back and forth as you walk towards it. And then as you get closer and closer, it gets shorter and shorter. And it's like, well, this makes sense. Like, this is what I've been taught in school. It's what I know happens. But actually hearing it in everyday life is like really surreal. And you can start like, you know, I end up like playing ping pong with myself by going and like waiting for the return, and I look like a maniac walking down the alleyway. But it's really interesting. I totally agree with that. Just walking around town and listening to your environment. I've learned a lot from that personally, especially about reverbs and delays and stuff. But that's a great tip. That's a really great tip. Okay, cool. Moving forward then with the podcast, you've had some amazing guests before. You've had, like you said, Mark Mangini, Nathan Moody, Greg Lester. I believe next week or next 2 weeks, you've got the best guest you've had, I think. But I'll save that for later. But I was going to ask, who is, again, you can give me maybe a top 3 or 4 if you don't want to give anyone specific, but who would be your dream podcast guest that you haven't had already?
You know, I still have this list. When I started this podcast, I made a list. And I started small with like some people. It's like, oh, like Greg, for example. I'm gonna ask him. He's cool. I'm gonna probably ask Lewis. Now you're here. And Nathan. And then I thought like, okay, let's go big. What would be like a perfectly unrealistic goal to attend to? And the first one was Mark Mangini. But I have a few others on my list. One that I have, which is coming out. It's gonna take a while, so I can't spoil it. But it's from a game that I really enjoy, and it's like a massive franchise.
Nice.
But two other guests that are still on my list, which I still keep there as the like unattainable goal, and maybe I'll get them at some point, but maybe I don't. Is actually the singer Björk.
Oh, that'd be
because, cool. Yeah, that is amazing. Because I saw her concert a while ago. And they actually built like a reverb chamber on stage. And so during the performance, she goes in there and you hear the live reverb of this chamber. Like she sings in there and they designed it in that way that it sounds like the reverb she wanted for that pieces.
Wow.
And it was just like, it's so cool. And she's like she's knowledgeable about sound, about nature, about like the connection about nature and technology, which I really, really admire. And of course, I've been a fan of her music and her art for such a long time. And the second person then of course is the singer of Radiohead, because they did so many interesting things as well, and I have so many records of them that I still listen to and find new and interesting sounds, and I like the kind of, I would say like the sound design of it. And I'd like to ask a few specific questions. And the third, we're just doing three now. The third is some people that I'm trying to reach now, and I'm almost there. Because when I started this podcast, I think I also posted it on Twitter. I said, like, okay, I'm going to set myself an unrealistic goal to shoot for the stars. And if I don't get that, I'm going to make a great podcast anyway. And it's one of my favorite movies is Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if you're very familiar with him. I watch this movie every year on the night before Christmas. It's like my own little ritual. I watch it at night. I have a little drink. I sit there. I just enjoy the night. And there's this one scene where they have this cat alarm, which is like a metal cat, and you like turn like a crank, which is the tail of the cat, and it makes this cat alarm. And this sound, I always wanted to know what they used, if they used the library and how they got to the sound, and of course everything else. So I'm trying to get the sound team of Nightmare Before Christmas, and
that's great.
I'm hopefully almost there. Hopefully by the time this episode comes out, it's already recorded. Let's see.
So I've not seen this film actually, so sorry about that. But I'm so curious as to what this sounds like. But it's kind of like been plaguing you, not knowing how it's been made all these years. Yeah. I'm gonna have to look.
I mean, it's not that. It's probably not that. Maybe it's nothing special. Maybe it is. The thing is that what I now know is that they made a lot more sounds that didn't end up in the movie because it's like a lot of music, and it's music by Danny Elfman, so it's of course the star of the show, and it's like a musical kind of type of movie, but like the design, the art style, and the overall feeling is so cool, and the few sounds that are still in there are still like, I don't know, it's just fitting for that kind of movie, and it's from the 90s, so I know they didn't have the cool technology we have now for like manipulating sounds. So I'm guessing a lot of that is just recorded, and it's just Foley work, and it's just creativity, and that's it's always interesting to me.
That is interesting. So in general then, what do you enjoy most about kind of Field and Foley recording? What made you want to make the podcast about that? Yeah,
so the recording side of things, when I started with the sound design stuff, I of course also researched about like how to make your own sounds, and came to the design, and also like to the design of like just synthesizer sounds or just manipulating sounds, but also like the sound sources like Foley for movies, and like then I found the concept of field recording, and I thought like, oh, that is a nice contrast to my office job, sitting around all day, going out in nature, walking around, maybe hiking, and then recording. That's a perfect like kind of contrast to my normal work. So I just tried it, and then I found out that I really enjoy having this pair of, I would say, oversensitive ears. You know, when you listen to something on your headphones, depending on what kind of microphone you have, you get this, I don't know, ultra, I don't know, contrasted sound image, and sometimes you can even hear with microphones, you can hear something you can't hear with your own ears, like with contact microphones, for example, or with underwater microphones, which I'm really fond of. Just put them in a pond, and like hearing a frog croak from under the water is just so unreal to me. And like experimenting with that, it instantly clicked for me. I always was like a sensitive guy, and I really enjoy different textures of meals. I also enjoy the taste, but I'm also very specific about texture. So if something has a really great taste, but the texture doesn't fit, I don't like it, because it's like, I don't know, it just irks me in the wrong way. So having those kinds of intricate, like, insight into the audio realm was just, love at first. What is it? Not sight. Love at first listen? Doesn't sound right.
That's not,
but you know
not
what
really
I mean.
A good alternative for that, is there? I've done the exact same turn of phrase 100 times. I'm like, oh, love at first. What is it again? No, that's really interesting. It's funny, like you say, about like hearing things you can't hear. I always really find it funny when in field recording or just out with a recorder and I've got like, say, a boom microphone, and I'm monitoring with my headphones, I can hear further in the direction I point the microphone than I can in real life, which feels like a superpower of some kind. It's like, I've got super hearing in one specific direction. It's really, I kind of like, just seeing what conversations I can pick out in a crowd or something. It's very fun playing around with. And likewise, I remember like contact mics especially are so much fun playing around with. I remember when I first started doing some contact mic recording, I was with some friends, and we were just recording anything we could find, whether it was things like vending machines, which is a classic one, or like electronic doors and stuff. And we found an ATM, and we started plugging all these wires onto it with our little kits and stuff. But it was in like a mall, and the security guard came up to us like asking us what we're doing, because it just realized from an outside point of view, it looks like we're just kind of like hacking an ATM or something to give us some money, because we were plugging all these things in and then taking money out with our cards so we could have them electronics. Didn't realize how dodgy we looked, but it sounded pretty good, and it was good fun. Like it puts you in some weird situations, and I totally agree with you, it's a fun thing to play around with, especially contact microphones. Oh, that's cool.
I have some stories about that too. I mean, one of the things is with contact microphones, the first time I really realized that I loved them was I had this like massive railing on a spiral staircase, and when if you punch it really hard, you get this like small ding sound, like a metallic ding, but it's very short. It's like, I don't know, like 200, maybe 300 milliseconds. Okay. But when you put the contact microphone on, it's like pitched down a lot, and it's a big gong. It's like a ringing. And it took like, I don't know, it ringed for almost a minute. And I was sitting there just punching that thing, smiling, and the hairs on my neck stood up, and I was like, oh fuck, this is amazing. I'm going to punch everything around me. So it's like you start finding out what sounds
onto your friends. Like what?
That also, I mean, that also works interesting. But that is something that was always interesting to me, because the sound is there if you punch it. You can't hear it. You can hear it with the contact microphone. So there's some vibration in there that you can't notice, but you can hear with your new ears, which is awesome. And the other thing is the boom mic is one thing, but the other thing is I have a Tilinga parabolic mic, which I bought for like recording birds, because I wanted clear bird songs. I was like really adamant about getting my own clear bird song. And this one is like, just like you said, it's like a superhuman hearing. Like you can pick up, I don't know, I've been on a field trying to find like a bird, and suddenly I hear a very loud moo, but I can't see the cow. I can't see it for the life of me. I try to find it. It's somewhere in that direction, probably almost a kilometer away, but the wind is right, and it's like it's picking it up. So whenever you're like in Germany, we go out in the field, you can try it. It's just so cool.
Well, you can just point it out the window, and you can probably pick me up if it's that accurate. Just get me aim right. I'll just open my window.
I just have to be higher up and point really, really exact.
Oh, that's cool. It's like a telescope, isn't it? Those kind of microphones. It's
really
interesting.
Absolutely. It's like I always explain it's like a telelens for your ears. It's the same thing, because most of the people nowadays are aware of like this big lenses on photos, on cameras, and so this analogy works well. But that's the same thing where I was like running around in the field with this thing, and I was like, oh, this probably looks really dodgy. I'm like searching around for birds. And a person actually approached me and like asked me if I'm like listening to conversations, and I was like, nah, I'm just trying to find the bird. And the good thing for me, at least, is I have this bright mohawk, so it's like I'm not a spy. Look at my like hair. It's like I'm
spy
very
would
obviously
say.
not a spy. Yeah, that's what a spy would say.
It's funny, right? It is funny how often I've had strangers come up to me when doing any kind of recording in the street or in public. Like, I remember, maybe not appropriate for the podcast, but I remember the first time I went to do a film shoot, I stepped off a tube station at Bethnal Green in London with a boom mic. And within 3 seconds, someone shouted, "Nice selfie stick, you wanker!" I'm like, why are you? why so aggressive? Like, what did I do to you? I've been here for about 3 seconds on this train platform, but yeah.
But to be honest, that's pretty funny, man.
A lot of strange interactions from doing sound stuff in public. It does put you in some precarious positions, doesn't it? I've never been back.
I've never returned since. That's wonderful.
Okay, right. Sorry, just chatting about different sound stuff. This is kind of inspired by the Mineshaft, which I thought was really cool. But what's a sound that you would love to record but you haven't recorded yet?
Oh yeah, I have something on my bucket list. I really, really, even if I can't record it, I really want a recorder inside a rocket when it's taking off.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want the inside, maybe even like with a contact microphone, and like a stereo recording rig, probably 32-bit because it's gonna be very, very loud and you're not gonna have a chance to adjust the levels. I mean, maybe you have if you're sitting there, but like I don't need to be in the rocket, but I would really love to have a high quality recording from inside the rocket while it's taking off, because the only thing you get really is like, of course, the audio system for communicating, but you never can hear how it sounds inside a rocket, and that's something, I don't know, it's just fascinating to me.
Yeah, that's cool. I like how you're saying, I don't need to be in the rocket. Like, I don't need to be sent to space to do it. But if they can't do that, then just a microphone will do.
I'm offering myself, so.
See, that's a good answer, but I can't help but think a rocket is just going to sound like just noise.
Maybe, but you also have like, you have so many mechanical things inside that happen.
That's
like
true.
You have the stage separation and you have the vibration of the metal. Just like I said, like put a contact microphone on the outside, and then you have, I don't know, the different pressures. So I'm guessing at least it's going to be interesting. It's going to be probably a lot of noise, but hopefully like you have some different kind of noises when you're out in the atmosphere. And then, for example, when the stage separation is done and you're like outside, what does like the ambience inside sound then? Is it like a humming of electronics, or is it like almost nothing and just the breathing of the people, or is it like, I don't know,
Maybe it's the same what's it called, like the same typical just low rumble that's in all the sci-fi films. Maybe that's totally accurate.
Maybe it is. Yeah, you never know.
I just know that if I was the one that recorded the rocket, I'd forget to turn phantom power on. what a waste that would be.
Can we do it again?
So that costs
Please do it
$3
again. The sound
billion.
didn't pick up.
Yeah, just come on, re-roll it. Come on. Well, that kind of actually answers my next question, which is, are there any places you'd like to travel for recording purposes? So outside of space,
Yes.
Any places on Earth?
Okay, so number one, space, and that is my goal for my retirement, to travel to space at some point, hopefully, if it's like possible and feasible financially, because like everyone that's been to space said they have the same experience. Like you see the Earth and you get this overwhelming feeling of it's all one planet, we are all together, like all this mushy feeling inside, and that I want to really experience. And also, of course, like I've always been a big fan of space. But otherwise, in the beginning I had a lot of places that I wanted to visit. I wanted to visit Nepal, and I at some point would like to visit Japan, especially Tokyo, because like the bustling city is something that's interesting to me, especially if you are not stressed. If you're like on vacation, you have all the time in the world and everyone around you is like crazy busy. I don't know. I had a dream once, a recurring dream in my teens, where I was in Tokyo and I was the only person not stressed and everyone around me was stressed. I don't know why I had this dream, but it felt so interesting to me, this kind of experience, that I want to have that at some point. But in the recent, I think half a year or something, I've thought about it more and more, and I don't think I want to travel to a specific place to record, because I think, first of all, flying somewhere just to record feels to me feels like a waste,
But the rocket.
waste of resources.
The rockets, that's
Yeah,
fine.
of course. The rocket, of course, the rocket is something. I mean, space is something that's like a guilty pleasure. So I'm also, of course, I know that it's not the eco-friendly thing that you do, but like if I would think about like just traveling the world, just recording places, I think it would be better if I need some specific recording from a specific place for a project to just connect with people that live there and get their kind of perspective. And I also had this topic with Melissa Pons. There's this like plea to record locally, like just record locally and become an expert at your area and at your nooks and crannies. And that's something that I really would like to explore more. Like my immediate surroundings where I can just easily drive and where I can like just be there weeks or something. And like every evening I could drive like an hour to some place and record in different seasons and different times and different situations of that place. And so I become this local expert, and then I connect with other experts. And like if I need a recording from Africa from a specific animal, I would rather have someone that really knows the animals, that really knows how to like approach them, that knows how conservation works, and that's really like passionate about like just bringing his art and his sound into the world. And that's something, so to be honest, I really don't have a place where it's like, oh, I really would like to be there. Of course I would like to see all those places, but I think I would be content with just like with this podcast, with speaking with people from all over the world and getting their insights, and then also getting their recordings and hearing what they hear. That's something that's very interesting to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, that's a really nice way of thinking about it. I guess for me, I'm trying to think if I had any answers to that question. I guess selfishly, the thing that I feel like I always need more of, or I always end up trying to design myself, is kind of like really cold winds. So like kind of Arctic stuff or mountainous kind of winds and stuff, like the really whistly ones. Because I feel like whenever I try to make one, no matter what samples I've got, I always end up having to like do these weird kind of EQ tricks that kind of like mimic what I'm actually trying to do. So like for me, I think not that I'd want to go to the Arctic Circle because it's too cold, but like that would be nice to have some nicer sounds from there. I guess I could just buy a library, but I've not got around to that yet. My parents recently visited the Northern Lights, to be fair, and I know they don't make a sound, but like I would like to go anyway. And I figured maybe the sound of the environment it's quite interesting, the kind of circumstances that need to be for the Northern Lights to kind of happen. I don't know if there's any kind of like interesting sound stuff that happens or could happen, even if it's like stuff that's outside the human range of hearing. I'm not sure, but that's another thing I'd be interested in. But probably similar to the rocket, it's just a bit of noise. But no, that's interesting.
One of my hobbies is intentional cold exposure, so I'm guessing I could make like a library of cold winds.
What's this hobby? Sorry, what did you say?
Intentional cold exposure.
What
So,
that sounds not very
I
pleasant.
go ice bathing, for example,
Right.
or
Intentionally is the point. Is a bit I'm like getting caught up on.
Yeah, so I just like in February I went up a mountain in shorts. So
Wow.
it was like minus 11 degrees or something. And
Did you survive?
3 hours up, 3 hours down. Really nice.
Really what? Really nice.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about
I'm
it. Like, you
literally
feel warm. You don't feel.
Got a blanket on
cold.
right now, and it's
Yeah,
warm
I
in
know.
here.
Yes, I know.
What?
I also like the warmth. So it's just
Right, just
like if you expand your range of comfortable temperatures, like it's very healthy, and it's also something that boosts confidence and reduces stress. So that's how I got into it. It's like Wim Hof is. Some people know Wim Hof, like the Iceman. If you Google him, you will know.
Right.
But it's like it's this thing where it's like a mixture of like breathing, yoga stuff, and intentional cold exposure, which has really helped my immune system. And so I was just thinking when he was saying cold winds, like when we were on the top of the mountain, like the last time I was like, now it was the second time I was up there, but the first time I was there, it was like, I think almost 80 kilometers an hour or something, or 90 kilometers an hour winds. So like really, it wasn't ice peeling. So it felt like like needles on your skin. But yeah, funnily enough, it felt pleasant. But the kind of wind sound was really interesting, and would be interesting to find out how you can record them, because it hits yourself and it hits your gear Now I'm thinking about how to record that. maybe I'll try that at one point.
I have to say,
that's interesting.
If you teleported me to the top of a mountain at -7 degrees in my shorts, I don't think it would reduce my stress. I think it would very much increase.
Of course. just so you know, it's not like you just decide to do that and you go up. It's like you do it with a group and you have like a whole week of preparation and they tell you what is possible. And the funny thing is that even people that don't like it at first are like absolute fans afterwards. So it's weird what the body can do. So
Wow.
But it's of course something, just a public service announcement. Don't go up a mountain in your shorts, and of course not on your own. Also for ice bathing, don't go alone. It's like always have a buddy and know what you're doing and start slow. But it's I mean, a lot of people have been doing that for years, like ice bathing, especially I think in Russia and like in the northern countries.
But then we invented clothes, so we didn't have to do it anymore.
You need them afterwards to warm up again.
Well, I can't believe it. I have to say, I've heard of people that like going like swimming like in lakes and stuff in the winter, and I've heard of people having ice baths after doing exercise. I've never heard of people intentionally climbing mountains in their shorts. That's blown my. I'm sorry to talk too much about non-audio stuff, but like that has just like blown my mind. I can't believe anyone would enjoy that. But I'm not going to knock it. If you like it when you like it, then that's great. But I'm really struggling to see the appeal. I won't lie to you.
Yeah, I was the same.
Yeah,
I was the same.
Wow. Okay. Wow, what a tangent that was. Amazing.
Yeah. Cold winds. Was a trigger for
right.
me.
Well, changing topic massively. My next question was: is there any audio kind of tool or gadget or anything that doesn't exist yet that you hope will in the future?
Time traveling recording. It's like you missed the recording and you just I mean, technically it still exists. You have this like pre-recording setting on some recorders where if you press record, you get like a minute before or something. So that's already there.
I wouldn't quite call that time travel, to be fair. If you had more time travel, that would be better.
It feels a bit like time travel.
Didn't you have a joke about time travel, don't you?
Oh yeah, I have a joke about time travel. I have now the setup to the time travel joke. Here it comes. The punchline comes before the question. That is the setup. So
Amazing. I can't
Lewis
wait.
laughs because he already knows the punchline, but you will have to wait until Lewis' episode to hear that one.
I can't wait to hear people's reactions to that. Sorry, what were we talking about?
Okay, so about audio technology. I mean, I've recently learned with the 32-bit thing that it isn't what it's cracked up to be, because you have like different amplifiers, so you actually have a lot of noise instead of that. So something like I would say, something like the 32-bit technology, where it doesn't matter what you record at what level, you can always get like a pristine, non-noisy recording. But it's like, I don't know, it doesn't really matter, because sometimes you even want to have noise, and also sometimes, I mean, no, I can't think of anything interesting.
I think I'd like completely noiseless recordings. I think, especially me, I think my recording setup probably isn't that good. A lot of recordings I do are just like here in this room, and it's quite quiet in here, which is good. But if I'm recording like really tiny sounds, like I can't mask the sounds on my computer or the window or something. So if I could like record the smallest things, like I did a sound library of like salt crystals, which is literally just like literal teensy grains of salt dropping onto plates and stuff. And I struggled a bit trying to get that not sounding so noisy. So that I would love that if I could do no noise recordings. Just a perfectly zero noise floor would be super satisfying.
I mean, if it's very, very, if you get a zero noise floor, it's probably going to sound weird, because you always have some kind of noise. So either you introduce some noise later on. But I know what you mean. I mean, if I record something very intricate, like with the Uzis from Lom Audio, for example, which are like very tiny microphones where you could record very tiny sounds. I remember I recorded a sound of like, I found this dead bug, and I like broke the shell of the bug because I needed Kitine armor sounds. It sounds horrible, but it's like the bug was already dead. Okay, so
it does sound horrible. You're right.
But I shut off my computer. I closed all the windows, and I recorded at night to have it. Just like you said, the least noise possible. So I can understand that, but I think for that you just need to build like a really nice noiseless chamber to record in.
Yeah, fair enough.
That would be the perfect thing. But yeah. I mean, because otherwise, how could the technology know which of the sounds around you should it record and which shouldn't? be recorded.
Magic.
Okay, I mean fantasy. Yeah, fantasy technology.
Have you ever been in an anechoic chamber?
Oh yes.
What's that like?
Fortunately,
I've never actually been in one. Would it drive you mad?
So, I'm pretty sure it's gonna drive you mad at some point. I had the the pleasure of being in the old factory of Bang & Olufsen in Denmark.
Nice.
Yeah, don't ask me why, but it's like it's now like a sound art space where like artists can like just reside and do art projects and make music and stuff like that. And there was I think her name was Laura. Oh shit, probably Laura. She showed me around, and she showed me like this anorechic chamber, which was used for like testing the speakers and like reference recordings and stuff like that. The only problem is it was very old and started to like deteriorate, so it looked like in a horror movie. But so you shouldn't stay in there that much because it's probably moldy somewhere behind those bars. So I just stayed there for a minute or something. But I could already like tell, staying there very still, that you could start just like you expect. Like you could start to hear like your heartbeat.
Wow.
And then if you listen closely, you can not only start to hear your heartbeat, but you have the sensation, at least in my mind, of feeling the blood pumping through your veins. Like you think you can hear it, but it's more like a feeling, because your mind is just trying to find something to hold on to, you know?
In 1 minute, you said you started getting that.
I mean, like, it's probably more than 1 minute, but probably 2 or 3.
Well, still.
But I had the same thing, to be honest. We had the same thing in the mine shaft. We found like a place where it was like more dry, and we just shut off the lights for a minute just to see how it would feel like with no lights, because it was like pitch black, like the absolute, of course, the pitch is black. There's no light source at all. And we tried to stay as still as possible, and everyone could like feel the lungs moving, and it almost, to my ears, it sounded like I could hear my lungs inhaling, exhaling, and like feel the blood and hear the blood. It was like, a very weird kind of sensation. And I'm guessing that's just the normal way that your ears adjust, or your senses adjust. Like if everything is quiet, you try to pick out the loudest sounds, and that the more quiet it gets, then at some point you're just gonna imagine things.
That's amazing. I've changed my answer. I want to travel to an anechoic chamber, but I don't know if I should. It sounds terrifying, but I'm so curious as to what this is.
I mean, you can go out every time. I mean, it's not like you're not gonna get locked in there for an hour.
I just know the one time I go is the one time we're going to like drop the key behind the sofa or something.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, it doesn't have a handle from the inside. No, I'm actually trying to find one in my area and try to record, because speaking about noise, that's something that I have planned for the hopefully near future, is take all my recording, like all my microphones and my recorder, and record like a sound of nothing in the anorechic chamber, because then I have the perfect like noise floor recording, just the raw noise floor of my recording setup, and using that to denoise recordings. Hopefully, that's at least my theory.
Yes, good idea.
It's gonna be really great.
That's a great idea. No, you can even sell it as a sound library just for sound of nothing.
Yeah. Sound of nothing.
6 variants. Yeah.
Yeah. Sound of nothing with microphone A, with microphone B.
Now I think about it out loud,
I'm guessing,
I think I could probably make the sound of nothing sound library, and I could probably do it a little bit quicker and less costly than that. I'm not going to reveal my secrets on air, but I think I've got a plan.
You're not gonna tell me your secrets, wizard. I see. No, but really, I mean, I have some microphones where I'm pretty sure they have a noise floor, and so getting that kind of like raw noise just from the electronics and from everything, hopefully should be useful for denoising recordings. Maybe it won't work. Maybe you denoise the recordings and afterwards it sounds like shit. But I'm gonna try it anyway. And also, I want to be in a chamber again, because it is special. It feels special.
What happens if you take an impulse response in an anechoic chamber? What comes out?
That's gonna be interesting. Oh, that's gonna be interesting.
So it can't be
Thank
nothing.
you for that. Yeah.
Or is it nothing?
I mean, you can do a balloon pop, right? There's videos online for a balloon pop in an anorechic chamber, and it sounds like the most whimsical thing. It sounds just like a bubble, like a bubble popping. So it's like nothing. So that's gonna be interesting. I'm gonna do that. Thank you for giving me that idea.
Yeah, I guess it is just like some air that moves once and then never comes back. Okay,
Yeah.
I hadn't had anything written down about anechoic chambers, but I've been enjoying this kind of fearful discussion about it and how it would drive you mad. That's super interesting. Okay, right. Going back on topic then. When it comes,
we're always on topic.
Yeah, it's true. When it comes back to processing and editing your sounds, something that I think there's probably a little bit of a stylistic difference a lot of people have in audio. Do you prefer all the sounds you recorded to have minimal processing, or do you like going crazy with adding as much processing and creative effects as possible, or do you have a lovely mix of both?
I would say the latter one. I mean, it depends. It really depends what I want to do. Because, for example, taking that cave recording, not cave, sorry, the mine shaft, I used that for an actual cave in a video game.
Mm-hmm.
And for that video game, I like the nature sounds I made very crisp and high quality, and every like sound effect were very lo-fi-ish 90s style because it has this pixel look. But I wanted the nature to feel like full and feel like realistic.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I also didn't want to just create droplets and make like a cave sound. I wanted to record the real deal. And I actually got like a comment under one of the demo videos that someone said like, oh, that just sounds like when I was exploring caves as a teenager. I was like, yes, it feels real because it is real. Like it really works. So when I'm having something natural, I try to do as little as possible to the material, and I try to make my recording really, really good so I can use it as it is. But of course, as I said, like it depends on what I do.
Yeah, cool, fair enough. I think for me personally, I've gotten really into processing chains recently. I've been really enjoying just like recording my own voice, just making weird noises, just like going blur, and then running it through 100 instances of Sound Toys or Snap Peep or whatever, and just seeing what kind of crazy effects can come out of it. So I think for me personally, like, I think Greg's the same, because me and him are doing a lot of that kind of stuff together, just like making the craziest processing chains you can. And I really like, I don't even know how I do it, but like sometimes you get like the perfect combination of plugins that like if you put the same sound through it twice, it makes different sounds each time you hear it. I don't know, like I don't know where in the chain that's happening, because I'm not like intentionally adding any kind of randomization. I know some plugins do have randomization, but when you start getting that, there's like so much like feedback being like processed and fed back through other plugins. It's like throwing a ball at a wall and it comes back as a triangle or something. It feels really really funny whenever that happens. Yeah, that's cool.
Those kind of happy accidents I like as well. And I know what you mean. What I really like to do also is like sometimes when I need something like a monster sound or something, I also record my voice. I make this like processing change, just like you said, like put plugins on top of everything. And then when I have that and it feels like something interesting, then I play around with it as a live effect. I just like try to make sounds with my mouth and look what comes out of it and use it like an instrument. And that's really fun to do. But yeah, then it's 4 a.m. You know how it is.
Yeah, that old chestnut. No, that's totally true. I then find as well, I remember reading a theory, or I don't know what it was, but like about two kind of styles of sound design, which kind of leads into this, which was whether it's additive or subtractive sound design, which I think is mainly talking about like in terms of layering sound effects on top of each other, but I think it also works with plugins, which is additive is just like adding specific bits that you need. Say you're making a gunshot, you'll think, right, let's get a bit of the sub end bass, you add some of that. You think, let's get a tail, you add that, etc. Whereas subtractive is what I tend to do, which is add everything in that could possibly be relevant. So you have like 30 tracks playing at once and just go through removing them one at a time until you get a good combination. Oh, yeah. Likewise, you could do that for like, say, 10 FX processing plugins on a track or not. What do you think? Do you have a preference out of those two? Do you find you work one way more than the other?
What I like to do, I did that once, but it's something that it's now like in my repertoire that I really like, is like using different samples. Like I use recorded samples or library samples, and then like splitting them up with like setup, like meaty part in the middle, and then tail, and just try to arrange them that they are all like almost in the middle, and then I like set my DAW up that it plays randomly like a beginning, a middle part, and a tail, and just cycle through them.
Oh, nice.
See what comes out of that. Sometimes I just let it run and record, and look for just interesting waveforms. Sometimes I do something specific, but that kind of like random chance accidents things I really like. And oftentimes, of course, that's very choppy because you have like this cut-off thing, and then you have a silence and like almost silence in the middle, and then the loud tail. But then you can use that as like a base and then layer on top of that. So, yeah, I don't know. I think I wouldn't say prefer. I think for me it's more like what am I feeling today? I'm trying a technique, and if I'm not really feeling it, if I'm not having fun, I just stop and do something else. Because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing for me, is that I enjoy working with the sounds.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, totally.
So if I set something up and it all sounds like shit and I'm not enjoying myself, then yeah, what's the point, you know?
Absolutely. I have to say, with like the randomization talk, I think I mentioned to you earlier that I've been really getting into Phase Plant by Kilohertz. And I know that one of the modulation options for that is like a random number between 0 and 1 you can assign to everything. And I've been really enjoying just assigning a random value to like any parameter of any FX or synth control, and just hitting the same MIDI note over and over again, and just hearing all the crazy different things it comes out with, and then using like global sampler to like, you know, grab your favorite bits or something. It's a really fun way to design. It's basically just like completely randomizing stuff until you hear something that sounds nice. It's kind of just like flicking through samples in a sound library or yeah, whatever. But it's really cool. I do really enjoy doing that. I recommend to anyone out there who wants to try some new tips.
Absolutely. I mean, the randomizing is always something that's fun, and it's like it reminds me also of I have this like analog synth behind me, which I'm slowly building up. Hopefully at some point it's going to be more than the panels I have now. But that's something that I also enjoy about the analog synth stuff, because in the beginning you know what everything does. It's like, oh, this is an LFO, and this is like a filter, and I put this in there, and that makes this sound. But at some point in the evening where it's like all cables, and your mind can't really like tell where the signal comes through, and at some point you just like hear something, and it's like, what the fuck, where does this come from? It's some kind of feedback, or it's maybe some specific thing that this specific panel does or something. And this kind of like mad scientist approach to sound design I really love. Just going wild, having fun, and at some point it's like, oh, this is good, I'm gonna take this.
Oh, cool. Okay, my penultimate question for you is what would be your favorite, or your dream, I suppose, franchise or project or whatever to work on? Like, do you have anything that you're really striving towards, late career or early career, I suppose?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, for now, I would like to work on a really, really good horror game. So I don't have any specific franchise. I mean, there are a lot of good franchises, but like a really good horror game that I enjoy, maybe something that is a bit deeper than a normal like jump scare. Like, for example, the Penumbra games I really, really enjoyed. They had this like very dark, brooding atmosphere and philosophical things in there. But otherwise, I don't know, there are so many games that I really enjoy. I mean, one of the Dark Souls games would be nice. Talos Principle would be nice. I really enjoy puzzle games, so something explorative with puzzles would be nice. But I don't have any. Yeah, too many of them. I enjoy too much games.
That's cool. I can imagine horror game, to be fair, which is set in 3 places. One is in an abandoned mineshaft, one is up a mountain in your shorts, and one is in a rocket. Like, I think that would that's a good structure right there. So
yeah, good story arc. It ends with the rocket. I'm gonna need some budget for the last sequence, you know.
Oh, and the anechoic chamber as well. So don't forget that one. That's like the kind of weird dream sequence at the end where maybe the final boss.
The whole house is an anechoic chamber.
Yeah, you'll start fighting yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. All right, then. Well, this last question, Ben, is one that I ask every guest on my show, which is, what is the first sound you've ever recorded?
Yeah, and why did you record it? Yeah, I know. I think I've already answered that twice, and the fun thing is every time I think about it, something new comes up. So the first time I thought about it with like, oh, I have this recorder, so I recorded the Thunderstorm. That was the first thing I ever recorded, but that of course was when I started the sound design stuff. So the second time, I think it was with Julie Elvin, which told that she like recorded with, I think, her sibling some stuff on tape, and I said, oh yes, I also did that with like at like 8 years old or something. So I recorded something on tape, but yeah, I'm still guessing that is the first thing I've ever recorded. like something on tape of my own voice, just playing around with stuff. That is pretty much probably the first thing I've ever recorded. Yeah.
Fair enough. How about this one? What's the last thing you've ever recorded? I guess it's this.
Oh, the last thing.
But not including this podcast.
Right now, this podcast is the latest thing I've recorded. That's good, yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
But before that, I recorded something recently and I can't remember. It's too much. I'm recording too much. That's the problem.
So you can remember the one when you were 8 years old, but not the one you did, like, I'm assuming probably yesterday or today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, fair enough. I guess the last thing was our podcast we did, which is coming out not after this one. So there you go. Just podcasts. Yes. Podcasts among podcasts.
Podcast after podcast. A lot of podcasts.
Ben, is there anything you'd like to plug?
Field Foley podcast, and of course Air Wiggles. Otherwise, I'm currently still working on Combustion, which is a really, really nice game that's hopefully coming out soon, but I have no idea yet when. And something else. Oh, it's already out by the time this comes out. So there's a YouTube short that's called Journeying Home, I guess. Hope that's still the title when it comes out, but I'm really, really excited about. It's going to be a big one, and it's going to be a weird, like, little YouTube animated short, which I'm putting a lot of love in. So check this out. I'm going to put it in the description. Thank you for hosting.
That's okay. Thank you for being hosted. No, this is really good fun. Thank you very much, Ben. It was great. Here's to another great year of podcasts.
Looking for more audio-related podcasts to listen to? We're part of the Audio Podcast Alliance, featuring a hand-picked selection of the very best podcasts about sound. Be sure to hear the latest episodes from our friends in the community at audiopodcast.org. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting on patreon.com/fieldandfoley or ko-fi.com/fieldandfoley, where you gain early access to episodes in lossless format and can submit questions for our guests. Thank you for listening.